Okay, welcome to this week's Team Conti Sim Performance Track Guide. Michael Conti here, racing the NASCAR NextGen at Charlotte Motor Speedway. This is going to look a bit different because I am wildly behind schedule this week. So we're going to change the format up a little bit, and instead of me reviewing the replay afterward and really focusing on what to say and when to say it and putting it in a very nice package with a bow on top, you're going to get the raw, unfiltered version of this. So as I run my 30 lap run and as I make those mistakes and as I have those problems, I'll be able to speak about it at that exact point in time with the same level of intensity that I would have while I'm driving. So a little different flavor to this week's track guide. Let me know if you like it, if you prefer that I do this while I'm driving, if you find that it's more engaging or if it's more accurate to what actually happens on the track. Let me know that feedback. That'd be good to know going forward as we get closer to season 3. All right, so going to load into the car here, and we're gonna go for 30 laps. So as I typically say in the notes for TCSP, usually these 30 lap runs are not done at an all-out pace to start the run. Usually I'm doing the run in such a way that I can maximize my 30 lap overall time. So I may give up a little bit for the 5, 10, 15 lap average, but that second half of the run should be where I gain all of that time back plus some. And if I had to continue to race throughout that run and go 40, 50 plus laps, I would just continue to pull because I have more tire left to use. That is the standard iRacing tire saving strategy and methodology. So let's talk about Charlotte. So fairly, standard intermediate, or so you would think, but it's really not. It's quite challenging. It's got a lot of character. There's a lot of bumps, especially in 3 and 4. Low grip, high-ish tire heat, which is helped a little bit by the colder track temps we'll have this week across both series. But either way, need to manage tires. So my first lap here, I'll fire off at a 64. It's a pretty good starting pace, I would say, for the conditions this car was built in. Certainly not the all-out potential, but like we talked about before, that's not really what you want to do on a 30-lap run. Heading down the backstretch here, entering 3 and 4, which is definitely the slower end of the track. If you'll notice, if you looked at my brake indicator there into 3, I used just a touch of brake to set the nose and help point it off the wall into the entry of 3. Into 1 and 2, no brake at all, really, throughout any part of the run. Just a very slow lift, get it down to the bottom. You'll feel it set and compress as it lands into the corner. Once you've landed and you've had that little bit of a bottoming out moment, that's your cue to start increasing throttle. 1 and 2 is tricky because it's got that big drop. It's very, very, very easy to miss the turn in and then not be able to get to the bottom, and then you start to slip the right rear out trying to get there, or just driving in way too hard and too shallow and you'll shove right up the track. Blue line is your friend. That paint used to have a bit more grip than it seems to have now, so it's not quite as advantageous as it was, but really want to get down to the bottom, not necessarily all over the paint with the left side tires, but just close to it if you can. It's a good reference point if anything else. Now you'll notice right there I flipped my my delta bar over to measure my lap time against the session last lap. Just a general good practice, at least from my standpoint. I like to compare against the last lap in my 30 lap runs. A lot of people compare against their best lap, but when you're 15 laps deep into a run and your tires are screaming at you and you're seeing the tracker go a half a second into the red in one set of corners, that's not really good for your mental state when you do that, and it promotes overdriving the car to try to attain a lap time that's not attainable at that point of the run. Whereas racing against the session last lap, that last lap your tires were essentially in the same window as they are now. You've got about the same opportunity. That's going to be your better reference point. Don't think we've talked about that in any of these videos, but as I do this live and I see the big tracker in front of me, then some good conversation to spark. So there you go. So completing lap 6 there, still in the 7s. You're driving in well past that Coca-Cola sign on the entry to turn 1, and then it's a really slow lift You don't want to bail all the way out of the gas at once because then you won't have enough momentum generated into one. You'll also snap the rear diff. You'll unload it really quickly and you'll slip the right rear, kind of similar to how it would be on one of the older generation stock cars with the locker in the back. You're locking and unlocking the locker. Same thought process with the diff. A little different mechanically speaking, but same outcome on the track. Just being very easy with the car. You know, just that little bit of brake. Probably 2-3 car lengths past the Coke sign into 3. Turning in a bit earlier than we used to. If you think back to the days of the smooth Charlotte with the yellow walls, if any of you have been on iRacing long enough to see that, we used to use a really massive arc into 3 and then just slam the throttle down and drive up off of 4. You could still do that on here, but you're going to really start to interact with the bumps on the cut back down the track, like right here. You know, if you arc it any more than that, you're just slamming the underbody into the bumps. So that momentum that we used to gain on exit by having that wide arc, it's negated by all of the time loss entry to center by plowing through the bumps of Charlotte down there. You'll see I'm not tracking out all the way off of turn 2. I'm trying to pinch it down a little bit more. As you track out off of 2, you start to interact with some different grip levels and things and different track surface parameters, I think they call them on here. And it really spins the right rear tire on the approach to the wall, so pinching it a little bit actually helps mitigate some of that right rear spin. You can feel it too. You can actually hear it a bit as well. The engine will start to spin the right rear. So if I go all the way out to the wall right here, you can see not only do I lose time, but I'm also putting a little bit of additional stress in that right rear. It's that little bit of brake into 3. Not trailing it too far into the corner, off of it, and then right back on the gas. And as I'm going around here, I'm just, as always, assessing the feedback from the car. You know, when I'm committing to full throttle right there, you know, do I feel like the right rear is slipping out? Do I feel like the front is getting numb? You know, which part of the car is not working, or is it both parts of the car? Or do I feel like, oh, okay, I oversaved that lap and I could have went harder without hurting the tires. Let me try that next lap. It's just always adapting to the feedback, leveraging the tracker to see where you're gaining and losing time, and putting all of that back into your technique. Our car this week does go through a bit of a loose phase from lap 20-ish to 30, a little bit past 20. When it comes, and the severity of it really depends on how well you manage the tires at the front of the run. If I blasted off here and I was doing 4s for 10 laps, let's say, yeah, I'd be definitely a lot looser and probably sooner into the run versus my nice race pace right here where I'm definitely taking care of it. Like right there, I didn't get back to 100% throttle until way later in the corner. That was because I just felt like when I landed, the right rear slipped out a bit. And if I would have gone full throttle, I would have just continued to worsen that right rear slip. So I just kept a little bit of throttle out of it. Just for good measure. I'll start to demonstrate a few things here in the next couple laps about different lines you can run. It's not going to generate the most lap time probably at this point. It's certainly not great for your tires, but it is going to be necessary at some point in the race. As you search for clean air, as the dynamic track forces the track to evolve and rubber in and heat up in certain places, you will have to look for grip. So we'll start in 1 and 2. First approach in 1 and 2 is kind of like a lane 2 entry with a cut down on exits. We'll enter in the middle, kind of right on that seam. And then we'll just cut it down a bit on exit. Good straight drive, and you can see that yielded about the same lap time. We'll try middle in 3 and 4 right here. A little bit of brake. Just following that seam, that nice big sealer patch. And yeah, nice grip. About the same lap time. Not too much slower. I probably could have done better as a driver. Let's try again here. We're lifting way past that Coke sign. Off. Back on. Get after it a little bit harder this lap. So just trying not to touch the bottom. And that'll be because when everybody's running that bottom for the first however many laps in this race, the bottom's going to take a bunch of rubber and it's going to get really hot and slick. And when that bottom gets hot and slick on a track that's as cold as this one is, you're really going to feel the effects of that lack of grip, especially at exit when you try to put power down. So by running this middle groove where theoretically nobody's really run yet at that point in the race, it should allow you to maintain grip for longer into your tire run. But as they say, all good things must come to an end, and eventually once people start making time in the second groove, what's going to happen? Everybody's going to go to the second groove. So now let's try the third groove. So not the wall, but the third groove. So enter above the seam, stay above the seam throughout the whole corner. And you can see just a little bit more momentum up off, pulling that tracker back into the green. Same thing down here above the seam. Now there's some big bumps up here, and you could see that with the tracker. Like, that was not good at all. And how do you fix that with the setup? Well, you just raise the car up. But when you raise the car up, then you sacrifice your drive through 1 and 2, and then you sacrifice your long run too, because when your underbody is too high, it's not making downforce, and you're just going to be slow. So you kind of have to deal with these bumps, but you don't have to run through them, obviously. Like right there, I just moved my line up a little bit in the center, and the car tolerated those bumps way more. So, you know, in a perfect world, we'd love the thing to drive perfectly anywhere in the track, but when it's set up for one thing and then you try to make it do the other, you just have to adapt. So that was third groove 1 and 2. Now let's try that second groove 3 and 4, a little bit below the worst of the bumps. There you go, and look at that. Really good combination right there. You know, 2/10 quicker than the previous lap. We'll pull it back into the 7s. Now let's go to the wall. This is going to be your most aggressive line, and I may or may not hit the wall at some point. This is live, by the way, so if I hit the wall, that's part of it. But that wall in 1 and 2 is going to be really good at some point. And then the wall in 3 and 4 is sometimes good. Let's see. Yeah, not bad with the bumps. Way better than lane 3. But not as quick as lane 2. And how am I figuring out what's quick and what's not? That tracker. That tracker is my tool to see how moving around is actually affecting lap time. So now I'm trying to push it pretty hard here past 20 to see what the lanes do. You know, when I'm doing my 30 lap runs to compare times and what the changes are doing to those overall times, I'm just sticking it on the bottom and not moving around. You know, this moving around definitely introduces new variables into it. And when you're trying to see if a change has made the car better, you only want one variable at a time. But for the purposes of demonstrating what the different lines do, lap time isn't my number one priority right now. So bottom in 1 and 2 is definitely slower there. 24 laps into this. Top in 3 and 4, not necessarily great. So given all that information, I think like lane 2 or 3, let's try lane 3 in 1 and 2. So above that seam. Gonna lose a little bit entry to center, should gain it back on exit. Yep, so there you go. So that's bottom versus lane 3. Now let's go lane 2 in 3 and 4. And that's lane 2 in 3 and 4 versus lane 3.5, 4. Yeah, there you go. So lane 3 in 1 and 2. Lane 2 in 3 and 4. On that particular lap, and that could continue to change. Entered a little bit lower there. On the right rear. Gonna lose a little bit of time on exit. Back down to lane 2. Changed up my approach a little bit, used a little bit more brakes, slowed it down, pointed it more. About broke even. And tires are going to wear out at this point. Let's go back to the bottom just to see how much slower this is. Or if it is at this point. Sometimes it comes back. There we go, pulling into the green. But Lose it all on exit 300ths, 400ths, half a tenth, about 3/4 of a tenth down the back. Back down into 3 and 4. Running basically the bottom, and bottom just about breaks even with lane 2. We'll go back to lane 3 and 1 and 2, and then we'll try bottom in 3 and 4. So lane 3 and 1 and 2. Get that right rear to grip. Little slip. Little loss entry to center, but should gain it. Here it goes. Okay. Broken even. Pulling almost a half a tenth into the green. Missed the bottom there, so we'll go lane 2. Hit a bump there and exit. Upset me a little bit. So bottom in 3 and 4 is pretty good right now. Lane 3 and 1 and 2 is great. Slow lift off. Back into it. Not all at once, especially at this point. Got to get that right rear to grip up. We are in the loose phase. And let's go bottom. There we go. Nice grip. Good bump compliance. You can see right there, that's where I hit the bump the last time. Gained a little bit back. And here we go. Gonna take lap 30. Let's just push the heck out of it, see what it's got. Didn't fully lift right there. Kept a lot of maintenance throttle in it. Really hard in the tires, but really good in the stopwatch. 800ths up into 3 and 4. We're going to go bottom in 3 and 4. Deep entry. Good amount of brake to set the nose. Commit to throttle. Watch that bump on exit. Good. And there you go. So that means I've got some good tire left 30 laps into it too. It's really good if I can pull a tenth and a half with driving harder. And that is 30 laps. Almost got caught up there and kept going. So yeah, so that is putting a couple different thought processes into motion right there. So obviously tire management at the front end of the run was critical, and we spoke about that quite a bit. In managing tires, that little bit of brake into 3 helps manage the right front temperature buildup, keeping a little bit of throttle out of 2, so to not slip the right rear tire helps keep some temperature buildup out of the right rear. Just those little things that you can do at the beginning of the run to help the end are huge. Again, a little bit of brake into 3, no brake into 1. Slow lift into 1 over the crest. Quicker lift into 3 because we have to use brake. And then right there toward the last half of that run, we looked at the different lines, the different approaches you can take to running those lines, how to leverage the tracker to understand which line is working and when it's not, understanding that a line may not work this lap, but as the track rubbers in or heats up or your tires wear out more, don't just completely abandon that line. Definitely continue to retry it. And yeah, just really understanding the thought process that goes behind racing at Charlotte. And this week with the Coke 600 happening, you guys will have the opportunity to run full-length 400-lap races at Charlotte. So in a 400-lap race at Charlotte, you're going to have to move around. You're going to have to adapt and overcome. So that's why I think the lesson plan in this video, I hope it hits home, because it really shows and it speaks to all of the nuances that go into being successful in a race, especially in a longer race like the Coke 600. Overall, though, I am really pleased with how this car turned out. This was a labor of love in a lot of ways. Lots of time and prep put into it. Notes are super comprehensive as always, so make sure to review those. There's some really good tidbits in there that I probably didn't exactly cover here. But overall, I think it's going to be a great week, and I'm looking forward to seeing what happens for the TCSP crew. So yeah, week 11, here we come. Charlotte, great track. Season 3 is upon us. Let's continue to try to close out Season 2 with some fantastic momentum. And yeah, I think I might run some races this week. We'll see. If you made it this far and you hear that part, let me know. Thanks for watching, everybody. Thanks for being customers. Thanks for supporting us. We'll see you in week 12.